Question: why is it so important for everyone
continue to be in the state of an emergency due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and pursuant to the orders of the county executive and other health officials, we are meeting remotely in order to protect the public health and safety of each other as well as the general public.
Okay, thank you, John. Our first order of business is approval of the minutes, and we can do those in one motion, I think. So is there a motion to approve the December 10th
Move approval.
and December 17th work session minutes? Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, any questions or comments on the minutes? All right, seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion passes. The only item of business in our open session is a continuation of our discussion from last work session regarding fiber parking sensors. A couple council members did not get a chance to make comments. We ran out of time. So what I'd like to do is at least let the two council members who did not get to ask questions or speak, give them the opportunity now to do that. And Laurie, I think you know who the two council, I think there's two, correct, who did not get a chance. So
correct. We had Maggie and Liz were not able to make their comments at that meeting.
Great, thank you. So we'll just first turn to Councilmember Dewey. Maggie, do you have any comments or questions regarding the parking sensors or fiber?
I don't. Thank you.
Okay. Liz, anything from you?
No, thank you.
Okay. All right. Do we have any council comments or questions from last time before we conclude that that subject? All right.
Mayor, if I could,
Yes.
if I could just, I guess, clarify something that wasn't necessarily clarified at the last presentation, is that this is I guess a gratis type cost up front for the city. But if we wanted to continue the following year, it's $16,500 per year to continue with these 275 monitors or sensors and the full system installation.
Right.
Also, if we did not want to continue after the year is up, the contract states that it would be basically fiber would remove the system, and there is a cost to remove it of about $13,000. So we're not committing to any money up front, but I just want council to be aware, if we decide not to go with it and they remove it after a year, we'll at least have gotten a year's worth of business out of it and its usage and its installation, all of which would have cost over $30,000. But if we decide not to do that, we would remove it, and there would be a $13,000. I'm sorry, $13,000. It's $50 per unit, 275 units. So that's in the contract. So should council want to move forward, I wanted you to understand those stipulations of the contract.
Okay. All right. And there's one other comment I was going to make. I know in part of the presentation there was data from other cities on how much their parking, either fines and revenue, grew substantially. I just want to make it clear to anyone watching, the purpose of this is not to, it's not for paid parking. It's not to gain more parking fines. The real reason is data and to help, people coming to Kirkwood find places to park. So I just want to make that very clear. This is not one of those things where we're trying to, make money off parking fines or paid parking. So, Russ, what do you need from the council to move forward with this?
Well, to initiate the contract, it's not anything that we would pay for in this budget year because it's free. They'll install it. And when I say this budget year, I'm talking about fiscal year 22. I believe since there's no cost, if council just lets me know to go ahead and sign the contract, I can just go sign the contract and get it started.
Why don't we go ahead and, will someone make a motion to approve the signing of the contract with Fiber?
Move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments on that?
Yeah, I had one question, Mayor. Russ, do we get a follow-on discount for a quantity discount? Let's say if we were to expand the system, or is that a fixed cost?
No, they actually indicate that our agreement would go on a per sensor basis forward at a discounted rate for any future years. So in other words, if we want to add sensors to it, we would stay at that discounted rate.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Okay, any other questions or comments? All right. Seeing none, and all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 All opposed, say no. All right, motion passes, so you can move forward, Russ.
All right, we'll contact Matt and get that going.
Very good, thank you. All right, now that ends our open meeting business. Can we have a motion to go into closed session for legal matters?
So moved.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. Any questions or comments on the motion? All right, seeing none, roll call, please.
Mayor Griffin,
Yes.
Councilmember Dewey,
Yes.
Councilmember Zimmer,
Yes.
Councilmember Ward,
Yes.
Councilmember Wirtz,
Yes.
Councilmember Gibbons,
Yes.
Councilmember Sears.
Yes.
All right, we are in closed session. We have 3 matters, legal matters we're going to talk about tonight.
We need to go into
We need
closed
to go
session.
into closed session.
Don't we need to go in and out?
Yep.
To the
We
other
need
link?
to sign out
I'm
of this.
sorry, we didn't get correct. Thank you for that clarification. So we need to get out of this one and then sign back into the new one. Thank you for clarifying that. So see everybody in just a minute.
Question: why is it so important for everyone to get tested when it is only good for that exact moment in time? A person could get tested today and it come back negative, but exposed the next day. Answer: testing primarily helps to identify people who have symptoms due to a COVID-19 infection, but also identify those who are infected but do not show symptoms yet, pre-symptomatic, and those who are infected but will not develop any symptoms, asymptomatic. So testing can help prevent those persons from spreading infection to others unknowingly. Question: how long after exposure to a confirmed positive should I get tested? I don't want a false negative, but I want to know as early as possible, especially if I have a pre-existing condition. Answer: exposure to a confirmed case may or may not result in infection in an exposed person. Test accuracy is highest in the initial few days after a person develops symptoms. Please note, a negative test result will not change or shorten the time a confirmed contact will need to be in quarantine. If you are a known contact and are in quarantine and start to experience symptoms, contact your medical provider and give them that information. Question: if someone was sick in the last 4 months but was unable to be tested for COVID-19 due to limited testing, would an antibody test show that they had the disease? If not, how do we know if there weren't many more individuals who have had COVID-19? Answer: the majority of people develop antibodies to the virus by the 3rd week after illness onset, which is indicative that a person has been exposed to the virus in the past. A small fraction of people may not develop antibodies, or they may have antibodies under the usual detection level. Question: is there a list for test sites for each county in Missouri? Answer: the DHSS website lists the number of testing sites around the state. You can find that list at health.mo.gov/coronavirus. Then select Missouri testing sites in the menu on the right side of the screen on the desktop or under the content on mobile. There is also an interactive map that you can access off of the Missouri testing sites page by selecting Interactive Map of COVID-19 testing sites above the list. This list is not all-inclusive, but does seek to help Missourians access testing around the state. Question: what can be done to build up our immune systems to make us less likely to get COVID-19? Answer: having a healthy immune system is a key for remaining healthy. Some basic steps you can take include: don't smoke, eat a diet high in fruits and vegetables, exercise regularly, Maintain a healthy weight. If you drink alcohol, drink in moderation. Get adequate sleep, so you can contact your medical provider if you have questions about how to implement these lifestyle changes. You can also take steps to avoid infection, such as washing your hands frequently and cooking meats thoroughly. And try to minimize stress. The Missouri Department of Mental Health has a number of resources that can assist with minimizing stress during this time. Question: can you get COVID-19 through touching things that someone infected has touched, like a printer or doorknob, since you don't usually wash your hands after touching those items? Answer: COVID-19 is thought to spread mainly through close contact from person to person, including between people who are physically near each other, within about 6 feet. People who are infected but do not show symptoms can also spread the virus to others. The virus that causes COVID-19 appears to spread more efficiently than influenza, but not as efficiently as measles, which is among the most contagious viruses known to affect people. It spreads most commonly during close contact and can sometimes be spread by airborne transmission. However, COVID-19 spreads less commonly through contact with contaminated surfaces. Respiratory droplets can land on surfaces and objects, and it is possible that a person could get COVID-19 by touching a surface or object that has the virus on it and then touching their own mouth, nose, or eyes. But spread from touching surfaces is not thought to be a common way that COVID-19 spreads. Make sure to wash your hands regularly and avoid touching your face to reduce risk of transmission in this way. Question: they say with respect to wearing cloth masks that the COVID-19 virus is so small that it's like a mosquito going through a chain link fence. How does a mask work or help? Answer: when using a cloth mask constructed from tightly woven fabric and with multiple layers, it can be nearly as effective as a surgical mask when worn properly. The CDC directions for making a mask recommend at least 2 layers of tightly woven cotton, such as quilting fabric or cotton sheets, and linen is also good. And t-shirt fabric will work in a pinch. According to a study done by researchers at the University of Chicago and published by the American Chemical Society, some fabric combinations are nearly as effective as an N95 mask. Those combinations include 1 layer of tightly woven cotton sheet with 2 layers of chiffon, or replacing the chiffon with natural silk or flannel. You can also combine cotton quilt with cotton polyester batting for similar results. A reminder: a correctly worn mask covers your nose, mouth, and chin, and fits snugly across your face. Question: why is it so important for everyone to get tested when it is only good for that exact moment in time? A person could get tested today and it come back negative, but exposed to the next day. Answer: testing primarily helps to identify people who have symptoms due to a COVID-19 infection, but also identify those who are infected but do not show symptoms yet, pre-symptomatic, and those who are infected but will not develop any symptoms, asymptomatic. So testing can help prevent those persons from spreading infection to others unknowingly. Question: how long after exposure to a confirmed positive should I get tested? I don't want a false negative, but I want to know as early as possible, especially if I have a pre-existing condition. Answer: exposure to a confirmed case may or may not result in infection in an exposed person. Test accuracy is highest in the initial few days after a person develops symptoms. Please note, a negative test result will not change or shorten the time a confirmed contact will need to be in quarantine. If you are a known contact and are in quarantine and start to experience symptoms, contact your medical provider and give them that information. Question: if someone was sick in the last 4 months but was unable to be tested for COVID-19 due to limited testing, would an antibody test show that they had the disease? If not, how do we know if there weren't many more individuals who have had COVID-19? Answer: the majority of people develop antibodies to the virus by the 3rd week after illness onset, which is indicative that a person has been exposed to the virus in the past. A small fraction of people may not develop antibodies, or they may have antibodies under the usual detection level. Question: is there a list for test sites for each county in Missouri? Answer: the DHSS website lists a number of testing sites around the state. You can find that list at health.mo.gov/coronavirus. Then select Missouri testing sites in the menu on the right side of the screen on the desktop or under the content on mobile. There is also an interactive map that you can access off of the Missouri testing sites page by selecting Interactive Map of COVID-19 testing sites above the list. This list is not all-inclusive, but does seek to help Missourians access testing around the state. Question.
Seems a little more poignant this evening. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Maggie. Roll call, please.
Mayor Griffin,
Here.
Councilmember Dewey,
Here.
Councilmember Zimmer,
Here.
Councilmember Ward. Wallace, I think you're muted. Okay, he's here. Councilmember Wertz,
Here.
Councilmember Gibbons,
Meeting.
Muted.
Here.
Councilmember Sears.
Here.
Thank you all. Before we get started, City Attorney John Hessel to make a comment regarding sunshine law in the City Council meeting remotely.
Thank you, Mayor. Section 610.015 of the Missouri Sunshine Law provides that members of the City Council who are not physically present in the council chambers can participate and vote on all matters when an emergency exists. The nature of the emergency must be stated in the minutes. So I'd simply ask that the minutes reflect that, again, we are in this state of emergency due to COVID-19, and in keeping with the orders of the St. Louis County Executive and others, we are holding this meeting remotely for our own public safety as well as the public health and safety of all the residents.
Thank you, John. We do have two recognitions tonight. The first is the Human Rights Commission Award of Excellence, which has been given to Roberta McWoods. So I would ask that Amanda Shear, the chairperson of our Human Rights Commission, and Roberta, please get on the, and I think they're both here. So welcome both. Thank you. So Amanda,
Thank you.
turn it over to you.
Thank you for having us, Mayor Griffin.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Amanda Shear, and like Mayor Griffin said, I'm chair of the Kirkwood Human Rights Commission, and it is my pleasure to be here to present to you the recipient of our Excellence Award, Roberta McWoods. To give you a little bit of background on the annual award, the Kirkwood Human Rights Commission Dennis Hart Award for Excellence is given to a community member who's been active for at least 3 years and who really embodies and embraces the intent and spirit of the KHRC and who works to promote the awareness and appreciation of diversity. Roberta McWoods fits this description to a T. The litany of things that she has been involved in, most recently with her work with the Kirkwood Teachers of Color group that started a scholarship fund for BIPOC students. BIPOC stands for Black, Indigenous, and People of Color. And to just highlight how amazing she is, Roberta is actually co-moderating a panel on this very topic on January 19th. So it's just another example of the amazing work she's doing within our community and the needed work that she's doing within our community. This year's award is particularly special because it is the first given after we've renamed it after Dennis Hart, who was our chair for over 3 years and who passed in 2019. Dennis too embodied the spirit of this award. His fearless commitment to righting the wrongs still resonates with our work today. And I think he'd be really happy and proud that we bestow this honor upon Roberta this year. Thank you very much for your time, and I just can't say enough great things about Roberta.
Well, Amanda, thank you, and thank you to the entire Human Rights Commission for all you do.
Thank you.
Roberta, congratulations. Would you like to say a few words?
I actually will say a few words, and then we're going to hop back onto, I was on another Zoom, the Educational Equity Task Force for the school district is going on now. I hopped off there and I'm going to hop back on. It is definitely indeed a tremendous honor. I see some familiar faces on here, and I'm really glad to see the familiar faces that I see. I want to thank you because as we know, and certainly in recent events, yesterday, this work is never done. It's never completed. We need to continue to be vigilant and support everyone that's trying to work on equal rights for everyone. So I want to thank you for acknowledging some of the things that I've done, and I've had lots of support. So of course, I never do this by yourself. You have so many people that are behind the scenes that are helping to get this award. I had the chance to meet Dennis's wife yesterday, and it shared my jubilation on being a recipient, and will do my best to continue to honor his legacy and the things that he stood for in Kirkwood, in the community. So thank you so much for this tremendous honor.
Thank you. I thank Amanda and Roberta both for being here. Often we like to do this in public, but this is as public as we're getting right now. So thank you very much to both of you.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Well done.
Thank you, Maggie.
All right, and we have one other recognition is Terry Kruger. Do we have Terry here?
There she is.
I see Terry. I'll wait till we can see Terry's face. Hello, Terry.
There she is.
How are you? Well, we have a recognition tonight for Terry, and I don't want to embarrass Terry because I'll be embarrassing myself, but I first met Terry, it probably was I was thinking of what, 1970 maybe? The Kirkwood YMCA in the old gym. Remember the old fire hazard? I mean, the old really deep gym that ultimately burned down. They had hockey. They had plastic hockey sticks and pucks. And I remember Terry and Betsy Heimos. I remember were the two girls playing in the league, and they were tough. And so that just it was really neat. But that's how far back I know I go with Terry. So I just want to read this certificate before we make some comments. This is from the City of Kirkwood, a certificate of recognition. This certificate of recognition is presented to longstanding and devoted Kirkwood resident and Kirkwood High School alumna Terry Kruger on her retirement after 41 years at KSK Channel 5. She was a pioneer in the industry as the first female videographer on the streets with reporters covering stories throughout Missouri. To this day, there are few women in this field. The City of Kirkwood recognizes and congratulates Terry on her accomplishments and wishes her well in retirement.
Thank you.
Terry, that's just fantastic. Liz, I know you called me on this, so you want to make a few comments?
Sure, Terry, it's great to see you, and it's been way too many years. And I just wanted you to know that our mutual friend, Deanne Lane, was the one that contacted me to let me know of your retirement. So you've been retired now for about, what, 2 days, 3 days?
Yeah, 4 days.
4 days. And I'm sure it feels great. And I know you'll be doing lots of things around Kirkwood for years to come, and just congratulations and being a pioneer and inspiring other young women that they too can carry those big old cameras. So congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Terry, what would you like to say?
I'm just so honored and flattered. I've had a great career. It was kind of bittersweet, but everybody has to, retire at some point. And I was really going to retire last winter, and then the pandemic hit, and I felt like I probably should keep doing what I do because it was important, and it was probably the biggest story of my career at this point. Now, I never thought it was going to last this long, but funny little story. When I first started at the TV station, my very first year as a production assistant, and I wasn't making very much money. So I went to the Parks Department, and Dottie Simplecamp was the Parks Director, and I applied to be an ice skating rink guard. And that's what I was at the outdoor ice rink my very first year, so that I could afford my rent and to buy that and the TV. So, and I've lived in Kirkwood like pretty much my whole life. I was born here, raised here. And when I graduated from Mizzou, I came back here
And this is where I raised my family. It's where I'm going to stay. So thank you so much. I'm very honored. I love Kirkwood, so this means a lot to me.
Very well. Thank you, Terry. I don't know, you and Laurie will make arrangements, I guess, to get the certificate very good. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank
Nice
you.
seeing you. Okay. All right. Now we will go on to our public hearing for this evening, which is a request for a site plan to construct a 3-unit multifamily building at 144 West Adams Avenue. Mr. Hessel, do you wish to enter any exhibits into the record?
I would, Mayor. I offer as Exhibit 1 the affidavit of publication verifying notice of public hearing appeared in the St. Louis County. Exhibit 2 is the affidavit of publication verifying notice of public hearing appeared in the Webster Kirkwood Times. Exhibit 3 is the viewer map showing the property that is the subject of the public hearing as well as the surrounding properties. Exhibit 4 is a list of property owners to whom notice of this hearing has been sent. Exhibit 5 is the report of the Planning and Zoning Commission dated December 3, 2020, in which by a vote of 5-4, the commission recommended approval of an application submitted by Adam Hartig of a site plan to construct a 3-unit multifamily building at 144 West Adams Avenue. Exhibit 6 is the subcommittee report of the Planning and Zoning Commission dated December 2, 2020. And Exhibit 7 is the Code of Ordinances of the City of Kirkwood. I would also ask the record to reflect, in the spirit of full disclosure, that Denny Shamel, one of the members of Clay Adams LLC, which is the applicant, is a very good friend of mine. I've known him a long time, and he's also a client. And I want the record to reflect that Denny asked me to form Clay Adams LLC, and I did that, and is typically within my firm. The lawyer is listed as the organizer of the LLC because the organizer is the recipient of service of process for legal papers and things of that nature. I disclosed this to Russ Hawes, to staff, and to the mayor, and I wanted to make it part of the public record. I also want to note as part of the public record that my friend and colleague, Hardy Manise, contacted me indicating that questions had been raised about that role as organizer. And I want to thank Hardy for contacting me. And I also want to emphasize that I do not have any ownership interest whatsoever in the LLC. I was simply the organizer. I have no interest whatsoever in the development. In fact, as I explained to my dear friend, Mr. Shamel, at the time that I formed the LLC, that as the city attorney, I could not and would not be involved in any of the dealings that he had with the city. And my loyalty and all of my legal duties and responsibilities are solely to the city. And in the unlikely event that a legal issue might arise, I would advise and represent the city in all matters and not represent him nor the LLC. I just want to make sure that everybody understands that in case there's any questions about that.
Thank you, John. Thank you. Mr. Hawes, who will present this to the City Council?
That would be the Director of Planning and Development Services, Jonathan Reich.
Welcome, Jonathan.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm going to pull up my presentation. You can just let me know when you can see it. Not coming up yet?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Let me try again. It shows up on my screen, so let me try again. How about now?
It's not a, there we go.
Starting.
Okay, all right. Sorry about that. Thank you. So this is the public hearing for a site plan review request for multifamily building at the property at 144 West Adams Avenue. This is the subject site at the southeast corner of West Adams and North Clay. The site is approximately 6,300 square feet. And because this is a multifamily request, if the density requirement per our code of 1,200 square foot of lot area per unit were applied, the site could allow up to 5 units. And as stated earlier, the request is for 3 units. This is in the B2 district, and I'll go into this a little bit, but in our B2 district, multifamily is a permitted use as long as it is in an area not designated as required commercial on the city's downtown master plan framework plan. This specific site is located currently as commercial. It was actually the 100 block of West Adams was added by the city council as a required commercial area after DPZ's recommendations. So just to be clear, that this was not an originally recommended commercial street by DPZ, the city's consultant, but the city council did add a few different stretches, and this was one of those stretches that they decided to add. The city did ask a consultant who later did a more in-depth commercial market analysis in downtown to follow up on DPZ's study. We asked them to reevaluate that just to make sure, get another opinion on it. That firm, PGAV, did actually recommend, due to the context, location, surrounding land uses, that this site should be considered to remove that requirement. So again, it is, you see institutional uses to the west, and it's on that border of clay as a transition out. So it is still a requirement in our code to have commercial component. They are not proposing a commercial component with this use. And so, as I wrote in my legislation request and explained to the Planning and Zoning Commission as well, if this project is pursued for approval, staff will need to draft a separate resolution that would amend the framework plan to remove that restriction so that it is a permitted use on this site. And before I go into the site context, I'm sure that sounds odd to some people, but it's fairly common for guiding documents like a downtown plan to be reassessed. I think the council, many of you will remember that a lot of the commercial areas, especially the ones that council discussed and added onto it, were discussed at a large scale, not really fine parcel by parcel detail. So I think reevaluation of these types of things in plans is very normal, and it shouldn't be seen as a as a spot rezoning or anything like that. These are just requirements of the guiding document that are being reevaluated or asked to be reevaluated by an applicant to accommodate a project. And it is completely up to the city council whether they deem that appropriate or not. So with that said, these are some photos. The top three of these four photos show the subject property. This was pre-demolition. I haven't gone out there. I'm sure if you've all driven by it in the past couple weeks, you've noticed that it was a week before Christmas. The property owner went through the proper demolition permit process, and as every property owner has the right to do, they demolished the building that was there. So they are fully aware that they have not received approval for a new building on the site yet, but this was the building that was there prior to the week of Christmas. The photo on the bottom right looks east down Adams Avenue. These photos are looking west or northwest across the intersection and northeast. So this is the site plan that's subject to the application tonight. This is the engineered site plan portion of it. And as it was mentioned, this is for a 3-unit multifamily building with the first level. So what you see on this site plan is the first level floor plan essentially. And it includes 3 dedicated 2-car garages, 1 for each unit that would be accessed. And these are all at the ground level of the building. The lowest level, which is ground level, which is essentially the parking structure, 3 individually separated 2-car garages. And then the southern portion of this floor is the access aisle for those garages, which is accessed by a driveway, proposed driveway, or would be accessed by a proposed driveway on Clay Avenue at the southwest corner of the site. Because the site, as I mentioned, it's 6,300 square feet, so a fairly tight site. The building does take up the majority. You'll see a landscape plan later that shows the proposed landscaping and the locations of that. The site has approximately 9 feet from the back of curb from the property line to clay. So they have some setback of the building at different stages that would have further setback than that. And then about 7.5 feet from the curb to the property line oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, 7.5 from the curb to the property line on Adams, 9 feet from back of curb to the property line on clay. The building is proposed, and I'll get into this in a little bit. We'll see it in the diagrams better. There are parts of the structure that are proposed over the maximum 40-foot height requirement, but it is under the 2.5 floor area ratio. Those are the two ways we regulate height in the B2 district. This is the proposed, and I have up there at the top of the slide that this is a revised plan received yesterday. So the one in your packets, this is a little different. The resolution that was provided in your packet had a highlighted condition as well that the applicant needed to submit a revised landscape plan. So this is the revised landscape plan that the resolution will be revised to reflect. What this one reflects are the 4 canopy street trees required along Adams and 1 understory tree on clay, as well as various plantings along the frontage of the building. So the Adams frontage, it's the normal requirement that we have for street tree frontages. On clay, these were altered a little bit at staff's recommendation for 2 things. Normally we would do a canopy tree for the street trees, but there's overhead lines there that provide a conflict. So we're recommending a understory tree. And also the applicant actually showed an additional tree. In your packet, you would see an additional tree on North Clay closer to the intersection. But staff had a concern about site distance at that location and recommended that it be removed. So that's the reason for 1 tree and 1 understory tree specifically on North Clay. You see on the bottom half of the screen, the applicant decided to provide a rooftop planting plan, and I'll let them go into their justifications for the height modification that's requested. However, this is something that they included in their landscape plan as going above and beyond the minimum planting requirements. So they do have flowering understory trees, 14, I believe, on the roof that are proposed. I do just want to caution, I think it's a fine effort to go above and beyond. I do want to caution the council that if this is made a requirement to be enforced, staff just, it would be more difficult to inspect and enforce these being up on the rooftop. So I just want to make sure everyone has a realistic expectation of that. However, we would, if it's on the approved landscape plan, they would become required plantings. So this is a floor plan. I have 2 different views of the floor plan, and these are just being provided. They were provided by the applicant, and I'm showing them really is just informational. As you all know, these are very detailed, and the council isn't approving where the dining room table is or anything like that. But it's to show that the layout of the building, they're proposed to have, again, 3 units. So the lower level is the parking level. There's a central elevator that would provide access to all the units. The western unit is actually a 2-story unit. So there are a lower level of parking and 2 levels of residential. The western unit is a 2-story unit. The eastern units are 1 level, 1 unit on each level. So for a total of 3 units. This is a floor plan that was originally provided of the rooftop. So this is the other element. We have the ground level parking, 2nd level residential, 3rd level residential, and then on top of that, we have a rooftop terrace area that's being proposed. I'll point out, we'll see them. It'll be easier in elevation view to see some of these things. But if you can all see my cursor, you have a stairwell on either side in the middle of the floor plan, the elevator shaft here in the middle. And there are basically 3 different areas, 1 dedicated for each unit of rooftop access. The other thing I'll point out, it's a little tough to see, but there's a dotted line here that goes through maybe the middle third roughly of the rooftop. That is a proposed roof covering over part of the terrace, upper terrace area. So there are partition walls proposed to divide these areas, but they are open air, much like a balcony would be, but these are located on the rooftop. Again, I think it'll make more sense here when we see elevation views here in a second. So as you're all well familiar with by this point, our code does allow for modification requests through the site plan process. And as I mentioned earlier, this request includes a request for modification to our building height requirement. I'll show you these numbers, but then I'm going to flip to the picture while I'm talking about it to help illustrate it. But the height requirement is 40 feet for buildings, for single-use buildings in the B2 district. And I know you won't be able to see these numbers, but what's illustrated here, and this is also an exhibit that we were provided yesterday, so you all will get these in updated information. But maybe I'll go to this one first, actually. So the 40-foot height requirement applies to the roof, and this is a flat roof building with a parapet, with the kind of mansard style parapet. But the flat roof portion is what would be where the height would be measured to normally, if you would ignore the rooftop elements for a moment. And that is proposed, I believe it was under 40 feet. I believe it was around 36, 37 feet. And then the elements above that are what exceed the 40-foot height requirement. So prior to, with the information, again, one of the conditions that was included in the information you all received was the staff requested additional information about the exact measurement of height as it relates to the average grade, rather than picking the floor height based on the front door. Anyway, so that information was received yesterday, and it shows that the maximum height, it occurs at that elevator shaft. So because they're requesting the ability to have elevator access all the way up to the roof, mechanically they need space above that elevator, and so the highest element proposed is the elevator shaft, which is roughly 54 feet 6 inches from the average grade around the building. So that highest element would be a difference of 14 feet 6 inches from the 40-foot requirement. There, obviously, as you see in these elevations, there are various elements that are at varying heights below that. So the rooftop that I mentioned here, you see in the elevation, the rooftop that connects the elevator shaft to the stairwells is estimated at roughly 51 feet, a couple feet lower than the elevator shaft. I'm sorry, that's the clear height for the elevator. Excuse me. The roof deck is about 3 feet or 3 to 4 feet below the elevator shaft, and then the mechanical room rooftop. So there's just basically from 40 feet where the roof deck of the main structure roof is to the top of the elevator shaft. Everything occurs within that 14.5 feet roughly, and that's the height modification that's being requested. So these are the different views, and again, we received this yesterday. I will provide it to the council prior to the next meeting with a revised resolution as well. This is the elevation. So this would be the view from Adams Avenue. This is a cross section. So again, similar information. This should have been provided in your packets, but this shows again that middle section, that middle third of the building, how the roof, the elevator shaft is the bigger rectangle here, and then the roof that would connect it would cut through there. And then this is a good diagram to show you how the flat roof, where that intersects with the parapet, that would be the 40-foot height measurement. And that would be somebody standing on that roof with the parapet blocking or the railing that's proposed, and how they relate to the other elements on the rooftop. So this item obviously went through the Planning and Zoning Commission process. There was quite a bit of discussion at the subcommittee level. Obviously, a lot of discussion focused on building height. So the subcommittee and the commission as a whole both asked questions and discussed how the proposed building height compares to the surrounding area. They talked about the possibility of maybe scaling back, discussed with the applicant the possibility of scaling back some of the rooftop elements for less prominence and visibility from the street. The other thing I guess I glossed over, and I know they will go into more detail about this, but on the site plan, I failed to point it out, but there were rectangles in the drive aisle of the parking shown, and those very long rectangular areas are chambers, stormwater detention chambers. So they have underground detention that they're proposing for their stormwater management. This has this project this project has been discussed with MSD for a number of reasons. Concerns were brought up during another discussion on the site, and MSD has given preliminary review and indicated preliminarily that the proposal, the stormwater detention that they have proposed exceeds what MSD would require, and MSD is already requiring a high level because of a known drainage issue in the alleyway. MSD is reviewing it as what they call back to grass. So they're reviewing it as if there was no development on it at all today, and the applicant is required to kind of bring it to that level. It obviously won't grass field, but that's how they review it. They call it back to grass review. And so the applicant has designed even above and beyond those requirements. So again, I'll let them go into the detail on those, but that and the landscaping, rooftop landscaping are the main items that they're proposing as justification for those modifications. Let's see, the other discussion points with the commission were about sidewalks, making sure that they're as wide as possible while still allowing the required trees to be planted, and then continued coordination because of how tight the site is. It just needs to be coordinated with Kirkwood Electric so that they can get the proper service without interfering with the other landscaping and those types of requirements. So ultimately, after discussion, the subcommittee, the 2-member subcommittee did recommend denial of the project. However, the whole commission, the vote was 5-4 with a recommendation of approval. So ultimately, the majority, 5 members of the commission, discussed their thoughts on the positive design of the rooftop elements being stepped back and how that would mitigate the height that's being proposed. And then they also discussed the justifications, really focusing on the stormwater, the benefits of the stormwater improvements and going above and beyond on that level. So there was a 5-4 vote for a recommendation for approval out of the Planning and Zoning Commission. I won't read all, well, I don't think I'm going to read all these, but I want to point out a few that were included in the draft legislation as well. I already mentioned this. If this is recommended for approval, we do need to draft, the council does need to approve a resolution that would amend the city's downtown master plan framework plan to remove the requirement for commercial at least at this location. If they want to revise it further, they can do that as well. Let's see, there's a condition, so a recommendation that included approval of the modification requested, and that is one that will be updated in the resolution as well because of the height information required. I have that in red there because it was previously shown as 53 feet as the maximum height. Again, as I stated in an earlier slide, that will be after clarification and about our measurement methods, it'll be revised to 54 feet. Just under 54 feet 6 inches. The other one I do want to call attention to is that there was an amendment that was approved, an amendment offered by one of the commissioners and ultimately approved by a majority related to condition number 4 there about the public sidewalk. So We had standard language about public sidewalks along the frontage shall be replaced at direction of Public Services Department. One of the commissioners wanted to add with enhanced lighting. There wasn't a whole lot of detail given on the purpose of that, other than the idea just that they want to make sure that the intersection, the crosswalks in the intersection are safe and as safe as they can be. That was an amendment made on the floor and ultimately approved. Since then, I have talked with the director of Kirkwood Electric, and I've been informed that this intersection, or that the city council has approved a standard for placement of streetlights and how intersections and blocks should be lit. The director of Kirkwood Electric informed me that this intersection does meet that standard, and staff would not recommend deviating from that standard because it provides safe and consistent lighting throughout the city. Really, because of our lighting code, the only option to provide enhanced lighting would be public lighting, because as you all know, we don't allow private lighting to spill out of the site. So they wouldn't be able to put a light on their building that would shine out onto the intersection. So again, I just wanted to clarify that was staff has, I've done some research and asking around on that. And so ultimately staff would not recommend a condition for the petitioner to provide enhanced lighting at the intersection. The second half of that was that the petitioner, the applicant, is required to request the ability to put raised crosswalks on Clay Avenue and Adams Avenue. So at minimum, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended that the southern and eastern leg, the two legs of the intersection that would connect to this development, would be proposed to St. Louis County as raised crosswalks. So Adams Avenue is a St. Louis County roadway. The city does not have control. St. Louis County has control over all 4 crosswalks at that intersection. So the city cannot approve that. So at the meeting when the amendment was made, I did raise that fact up, and that's why it's worded the way it is. So that really the requirement is the applicant needs to request that permission from St. Louis County. But if St. Louis County says no, there's nothing that the applicant or the city can do about it. So just want to clarify that language. Those are the main conditions I wanted to call attention to. So our procedures for site plan review do require a public hearing, so that's why we're here tonight. After tonight's meeting, it would go to the city council, and as I mentioned, we would actually need 2 separate resolutions. The first resolution would be to amend the framework plan to allow a multifamily without commercial at this location, and then the actual resolution approving this project would be a resolution with 1 vote required for that. So I'm available for questions, and I know the applicant is here with representatives as well.
All right, thank you, Jonathan. Does the applicant wish to make any comments, make a presentation before we get into council questions? Let's see.
Freddie, I think the 144 West Adams would be yep, there we go.
Okay.
And then I think Freddie, if you had a phone number for them for audio. Let me see if I can. Freddie, if you can promote, I think it's the number that ends in 6396, I believe.
Jonathan, can you hear us?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Mr. Hessel. And just real quick to provide a little color clarification on my side with Mr. Hessel's opening comment. His client is the intended resident or occupant of one of these units, which I think is the reason for the disclosure there. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to our architect, John Odom, who will go through our presentation here.
Thank you very much. Jonathan, I just want to clarify before we get going, are you able to see our presentation screen here?
We are not.
You are not. Okay, let's get that fixed here first, and then we'll begin. Do we need to share a screen with you?
Yeah, you should have an option at the bottom of the screen to share screen. Yeah.
Okay, give us a second here. We're trying.
It's coming up.
Okay. Let us know when you can see it here. We're getting it situated.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay. Okay, very good. Are you able to see us now?
Yes.
Okay. So again, my name is John Odom. I'm the architect for the project here. So this is a proposed rendering of what would be the front elevation as you're looking down Clay Avenue. The building, as Jonathan talked about, is a 3-story building with a rooftop terrace on the top level. As you see here, the building is a full brick building. It's in a traditional style. And one of the goals of our project is to, one, have the building look like a traditional building, but two, also be sensitive to the height regulation that we've all talked about here already tonight. As you can see from the front of the building, from the side, on the right side, are proposing what looks like a chimney element. And this is mainly to look at the building from a perspective of how do we somewhat mitigate some look of the building on the rooftop there. So the stairwells are actually enclosed with inside those chimney elements, and there's 2 on the building, 1 on each side. So it's much of a bookend on the building as you would see in a traditional building. As Jonathan said, the first floor would be parking, second floor would be residential, third floor would be residential, and then also the rooftop terrace on the top floor. One item to mention here is that the height limitation is an important feature to talk about, in that we do meet the overall height regulation at 38 feet to what would be the parapet wall intersection. And the building, the top of it actually steps back. So as you're viewing this in a perspective image, the rooftop covering, the elevator shaft, the stairwells, those kind of fade to the back there. And from this view, you can see that as well. This would be looking north on Clay Avenue. That the rooftop terrace would actually fade to the distance, and what would be more kind of in the foreground is the actual building itself. So from this perspective, you would see coming down Clay Avenue, the garage entry would be the right as you see right there into the facility. And go to another view. Not moving. On here, just a moment. We're having technical difficulties. Can't move. There we go. This would be looking from the other side of the building here at the first level on the first floor there, second floor, third floor, and then ultimately the rooftop terrace. The proposed landscaping would be on the top, as you can see there. So this is part of what we're proposing under the modification request is the additional trees on the rooftop. So those would be visible to the public from the street level, as you can see here. And then this would be looking down Adams as well here. So in the foreground, you can see what would be our proposed street trees. And then on the rooftop deck, you would see the additional tree landscaping there. On this side, you would see the chimney element, which again is the stairwell to the rooftop going that way. So from an architectural standpoint, the drawings as proposed as a flat image, you can see what the height kind of differences are there. But again, as a perspective image, as you would actually view the structure, the majority of the facade will be under that regulation of what we are proposing under the 40-foot. It's only the rooftop covering which is stepped back on the building that would be at that 54-foot 6 inches level that Jonathan spoke about. So again, as a axonometric view here, this would be the front elevation of the building, a full masonry facade on the front in a very traditional style with the mansard roof, precast banding around the whole building, front central element all out of limestone cladding. From a side element, this would be the chimney element that you're seeing that would kind of encapsulate the stairwell. And then from the right elevation, which would be the clay side, would also be the enclosed stairwell into the garage portion. And then this would be the rear elevation, which would not hardly be seen because there are adjacent buildings and parking lots to this portion of the building here. From kind of a simpler view here from the floor plan that you saw earlier from Jonathan's presentation, the shared enclosed driveway is along the bottom in the gray as the cars enter from North Clay. Our stormwater detention is below the driveway, so not visible as you're pulling in here, but we'll get into that here in a moment about further details on that. 3 two-car unit garages, as you're seeing in the different colors here, a central lobby space to an elevator that goes and services all 3 floors plus the rooftop. And then 2 stairwells on each end of the building that would serve for separated means of egress out of the units and also out of the rooftop terrace. This would be the second floor plan, which is on the left-hand side, you see the west unit, which is the first floor of that western unit, which is mainly residential living spaces, bedrooms. And then on the right side would be the unit number 2, which is also the same unit as number 3. It's just stacked upon each other. This would be the third floor plan. So on the left, you have the western unit, which would be mainly the master suite area and also the kind of common living spaces of that unit. And then what was be proposed as a 3-bedroom unit on the right as an additional unit. Again, 2 stairwells on each end, elevator in the center. The rooftop plan, so each unit has its own individual rooftop area that it can go to that is serviced by a central lobby off of the elevator as well as a stairwell again to each side. So rooftop deck number 1 is to the left, unit 2 has the front kind of northeastern corner, and rooftop deck number 3 has the southeast corner as you see there. Again, as Jonathan proposed, we are requesting a modification under this process to take our building to the 54-foot 6 inches mark. And primarily, the number that dictated this was just from a utility factor of having the stairwells and also the elevator shaft primarily. That the elevator shaft has to have room as overhead clearance above when the elevator lands at the rooftop deck. That's the primary driver of the height there. But again, as we showed you in the rendering, that elevator shaft is set back from the front facade. So as a perspective from everyday viewing, it won't be as apparent that there is actual, rooftop structure, covered area, because it's not predominantly on the front facade. As analyzed by the code currently, our average elevation to parapet intersection is how the code is defined as Kirkwood is 38 feet, which is underneath the 40-foot threshold. But again, it's the rooftop element that does drive that number up to the 54 feet 6 inches. And certainly I'm happy to answer any questions as we finish our presentation on how those numbers are derived. Again, Jonathan showed this slide. This is an updated average grade around the entire perimeter of the building. Again, the numbers were derived at 54 feet 6 inches to the structure of the elevator shaft. One comparison we would like to make. This is a recently approved project on the left. Again, every project has its own merit that it's judged by. So this is not to make a comparison, but as just to understand the scale of the building that we're proposing. And we feel that it's very important to kind of reiterate the fact that we are stepping our facade back. The project to the left, you all probably know very well. It was approved at 60 feet, 10.5 inches to the top of the parapet, and that was on the front face of the facade. And as I've mentioned previously here, our project, we're proposing it at 54 feet, 6 inches to what would ultimately be the top facade. This is the site as it stands prior to demolition. The only thing I'd just like to emphasize here is there's a small cross slope on the property, starting at the northeast corner to what would be the southwest corner. The property falls 3 feet, and that's the only topography change on there. It is a small site, shy of 7,000 square feet, and we are proposing to use nearly the majority of the actual square footage of the lot. As proposed before, this is a engineered plan of what the stormwater facility would be. And this is an important part to mention, is that under the modification request, stormwater mitigation is an allowable source to come back to ask for a height increase. So while this diagram may be kind of Greek to most, it is what we're showing here is that underneath the drive aisle, we essentially have large perforated piping that is along that drive aisle there that collects water. So the water will be collected from the rooftop deck, scuppers and downspout along our site. It will actually go into these concrete or these perforated pipes, and then it will discharge the water into the city storm sewer. And so what happens here, just in a layman's sense, is that these pipes will actually fill up, and then it will slowly release the water into the city storm sewer. So by MSD standards, we are allowed to discharge 0.51 cubic feet of water per second, and we are proposing to discharge 0.27 cubic feet per second of water into the city storm sewer. So we are reducing the water runoff by nearly 50% of what is required. So in the event of a large storm event that would come along, say it's a 3-inch rain, 100-year storm that comes along, we'll be able to detain that water and not contribute to what would be already an overwhelmed storm sewer system at that point. So we won't contribute to any downstream flooding at that point. We will actually hold all of our water and then release it very slowly as the storm kind of passes by. And the point is that we can help people downstream from us, lower topography levels, that we will not increase storm runoff to the sewer. So we're actually alleviating the demand on the storm sewer. This is just a cross-sectional view, so you can see towards the bottom left, these are the pipes that will be underneath of the concrete slab. And then there's also another aspect to stormwater. In addition to the actual detaining of the water, we are actually going to do a water quality. And so this is a unit that actually is dropped into what would be underneath our driveway. And the point of this is there's two aspects of stormwater. It's the actual detention, the quantity of water, but it's also the quality of water that we discharge to MSD. And the quality portion of it is that in the event you have oil, grease, sand, general trash that actually flows from the site, it will be caught into these units and held and not discharged to the MSD storm sewer. So this is quite an upgrade portion to the storm sewer. In addition to holding back the water, we actually hold back any trash or any infiltration. That remains on site. It's under our responsibility to clean that portion of the storm sewer out from there. So again, just to reiterate, we're holding water for a longer period of time. We're not helping to overwhelm the storm sewer at this location. This is above and beyond the standard of what MSD has asked for and what typical site development would end up being. So again, and then with the quality, we feel like that's a large element as well. With the landscaping plan, again, we meet all the Kirkwood requirements for street trees, kind of understory plantings along Clay and Adams. And then, as Jonathan mentioned, the rooftop planting plan will become part of a condition to this acceptance here, that we keep and maintain those additional trees on the rooftop. So from a perspective, as you saw earlier during the rendering portion there, those trees will be seen and visible and maintained, irrigated for the enjoyment as people as they pass by, as well as to the residents that visit the rooftop. So just a few updates. We have submitted the revised landscaping plan as Jonathan showed. We've increased the concrete entrance to the ADA compliant drive to 7 inches thick. The stormwater management plan has been submitted to MSD and city for review and has had conditional, or has had approval, almost, we're not at approval level, we're at, they've accepted it and established that we have provided a higher standard for what is required. And then at this time, we've also installed a 6 foot high fence along the property because we have demoed the buildings. And then we've also executed a lease for additional parking offsite at the Methodist Church for construction traffic. And then also in addition to that, we have also made submittal and have also gone through the ARB process. Jonathan may be able to speak more in depth on that. We have not heard the results on that, but we are anticipating that that will have passed. That happened this last Monday. And with that, we can turn it over for any questions. We'd be happy to answer any that you have.
Great. Thank you very much, John. If we could get you to take your screen off, that would be great.
Okay, we're working on that here.
No, that's fine.
Yeah,
Very good. Thank you. For the people watching, just a reminder for a public hearing, it's an opportunity for the city council to ask questions. This has been presented to us for the first time. There is no vote to be taken tonight. Council members will simply ask questions. You won't hear who's in favor, who's against, and things like that. So just understand it's a question period, and there will be no vote on it tonight. So we'll go straight to council questions. Tonight we'll start with Council Member Dewey.
Thank you, Mayor. My main concern is with the height of the building, especially in that section of town. It would be the tallest around, I think. I did go to that P&Z subcommittee meeting. They reported the proposed height and scale of the rooftop are too prominent and visible or are not necessary for the function of the building. And that is my problem. The other part about having all of the amenities, which are very nice on the roof, is part of it is that, as you said, the elevator adds really most of the height, is that in that section of town, we actually, in any residential in downtown, we actually have the intent of encouraging people to be out and about, to go to the shops, to walk their dogs, to be in the city. So that your height is taking away from what we actually are encouraging in downtown, it just adds to my discomfort. So that's, I think that's all I have to say right now.
Thank you. Councilmember Zimmer.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I don't have a lot of questions. Thanks for the thorough presentation. I guess one concern that I need to further look at is we, as the council, designated this block of Adams as commercial, and this proposal is 100% residential. So it's not even a mixed use. So there's kind of a bridge there that that we need to, I think, review. I like the architecture of the building. The height is a concern, but I think that the architectural designs of this building is what, in my mind, we need in Kirkwood. And even though I have concerns with the height, I appreciate the effort that was made to set this back. And, I've talked about upper floor setbacks to reduce the visibility of the height from street level. And so I appreciate that effort. Other than that, I'll continue to look at this and thank you for the presentation.
Thank you. Councilmember Ward. You're still on mute, Wallace.
I like to be quiet at times. I've got a couple of questions for the applicants. One, the water retention system, it's unique and creative. One, I wondered what the engineering life expectancy for that system is, and what would the maintenance cycle look like for that water retention design?
So the life cycle of it, it's just pipe is all it is. So there's no maintenance on the actual storage portion of it. It's the water quality unit that will need to be probably maintained, I'd say at least monthly, if not, maybe quarterly at that point. There's not a lot of mechanical devices there to maintain necessarily. The portion of the water detention, there's nothing to maintain at that point. In the event that you would ever have a heavy, rain with a lot of sediment that would settle, you would need to clean out the manholes, but we're talking maybe a yearly basis on something like that. So it's pretty foolproof. This is a pretty non-mechanical system that would it's not going to require a lot of attention on a weekly basis. Let's just put it that way. That we're not. Yeah, and it's also on us. This is not a city. We're not deeding this to the city at that point. We would obtain any necessary. Yeah, exactly. We would not have to do anything. Or excuse me, the city would not be required to do anything whatsoever with the system. It would be on us to maintain 100%, clean out, and make sure that it's working at all times.
Well, okay. Excuse me one second. Could we get a name just so for our record of the last person who spoke?
That was me, John Odom.
Oh, okay. You've got another name. Okay, I understand now. You got your name over here too. Okay, so I thought it was somebody else. Sorry, John.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead. Go ahead, Wallace.
Okay. Yeah, John, similar systems like that over time, silt has clogged the fabric that they use to keep the soil from entering that system. And it just occurred to me that might become problematic over time.
That's correct, Wallace. There is a management practice that we'll take on, like John said, it's either quarterly or monthly. We come in and clean out those traps and make sure that sediment's not building up.
Okay.
Yeah. And keep in mind too that we are taking up the vast majority of the site. We're just under 7,000 square feet for the site. The building covers the majority of that. So the majority of the water that we're taking and treating and holding is coming from the rooftop. So there will be, dust particulates, but we're not taking on, heavy traffic of mud and things of that nature that could actually clog the system much faster if it was at street level. So, again, that's the big consideration here, is that it's going to hold the water is the biggest item. The quality is also a good item for trash that would blow in, things of that nature. But we don't expect a huge amount of sediment just because of the nature of us taking the entire site.
I'd like to talk a little bit about the engineering side of things, since height seems to be a theme tonight. Buildings this height, to 2-3 stories, typically elevators would be hydraulic, and those don't generally require much in the way of mechanicals on the high end of the shaft. What type of elevator are you proposing in this system? And the one that you have, the elevator shaft that you have right now, is that engineering minimum?
Yeah, that's correct. So the numbers that are derived off of the elevator shaft are from when you go to the actual rooftop deck. there's a clearance over the top of what would be the finished floor of the rooftop deck. And I believe that's 13 feet to the hoist beam. And so that is the number that's deriving that. So once you get past the hoist beam, then you have the actual flat roof, a small parapet, and then the cap flashing on top of the roof just to make it all work. So we've taken that number just to a minimum at that point. The elevator machine will actually be on top of the elevator itself. So there is a clear height as the car goes up to the top of the rooftop that the machine has to have clearance before it would hit the hoist beam. There are other components, the electronics that will be in an enclosure that is at the rooftop level. If you look at the floor plan, you'll see that small area we provided for that. But it's just simply running the numbers out and saying, what is the clear minimum height you have to have to the bottom of the hoist beam and then to the parapet wall. And that's truly the function of where we got to that number at the 54.5 feet there.
Okay, so it's a cable lift elevator?
No, it's a hydraulic.
It is hydraulic.
It is hydraulic, yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. Yeah, that's it for me, man.
Yeah, there's a pit too as well, but the hoist beam is there for installation is really what it's there for. So when the elevator crew comes in, they will actually use that for the installation portion of it.
Okay. Thank you. That's it for me, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Wertz.
Yeah, two things. This one's for Jonathan, and you probably don't know this, but if I could have this, do you know what the heights are of some of the surrounding buildings?
Yeah, I do not have those numbers with me tonight. I can look at those. I know the AT&T building across the street is probably the highest of those. So I'll try to track that information down for you. Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you. And then one other thing, I'm not sure who could answer this, but the roof coverings, I was trying to figure out, they're not like the mesh looking canopy kind, they're like an actual solid roof up on the roof, covering on the roof, whatever. Is it more of like a canopy, or is it like an actual solid covering?
And I can answer that for you. So the covering that Jonathan showed earlier, the kind of dashed line perimeter, again, that perimeter is set back from the front facade. So there's only about 18 feet of covering in the middle portion of the building that would cover for each of the units. That portion is solid. So as you look up from the street, you would see the underside of that. However, we're going to treat that with like a tongue and groove pine, so it's going to look real nice. But it's not going to be a mesh structure. It's not going to be an open air pergola. It is truly going to be a solid covering, but we're trying to keep that height to a minimum. Again, the elevator shaft exceeds where that portion is. We're keeping it to a reasonable level, so just for ceiling height in there.
Okay, excellent. And that's all I had.
Thank you. Councilmember Gibbons.
I just have a question about the entrance to and from the garage, and concern about the sidewalk being right up against the building and the sight of cars coming out with pedestrians on the walk. I'm not sure if there's something that can be done, like, maybe some flashing lights when the garage is opened, or something that could warn pedestrians that there's a car coming out of there. Because there is just no room for the people on the sidewalk to see that car is on its way out.
And I would say this, in many large cities such as Chicago, where you have a parking garage situation, this incident has occurred before. And the way that they would handle that and have handled that is they do audible alarms. And so as that car approaches, there's a sensor, triggers an alarm. It's kind of an annoying sound, but it gets your attention. And then the cars would audibly tell somebody on the sidewalk that somebody is coming out at that point.
Do you have a plan? Do you have a plan to include that?
We could make it part of a condition at this point, not a difficult item to include.
Okay, great, thank you.
Sure.
Councilmember Sears.
This may be for Jonathan to answer. Jonathan, I know you always give really good, unbiased kind of answers to these sorts of questions. What is the attractiveness of a requirement of business only? And why would a city have that in its plan? And conversely, what are the negatives? What are the downsides? In other words, I want to get a full understanding of why we put that in place and what we give up, if anything, if we release it.
Sure, I will try my best to answer that. So first, the commercial requirement, it does allow, somebody else had mentioned it too, a mixed use development would fulfill that requirement also. So the requirement for commercial could be met by an entirely commercial building or a mixed use building, right? Now with that said, the intent typically, and I think was the case in discussions with specifically here with Kirkwood in downtown, was the desire to make sure that we were preserving enough commercial base in our downtown. So recognizing that the downtown is an important economic driver for the community, that if we allowed, until recently, pure residential use was not permitted. It had to be mixed use in the B2 district. You either had to have commercial or you had to rezone to R5 multifamily. So we certainly, in the downtown area, we certainly have multifamily development, but those are zoned R5 multifamily. It's a bigger, different process, right? But the intent when we added residential to the B2 district, that was really recognizing, I don't know if it's part of a cycle or a trend or what you want to call it, but I'd say we're at the cycle of downtown development where people are much more interested in living in urban environments. And so, and I think in the industry, it's been clearly recognized that more rooftops, more people, more foot traffic is all more customer base for the business as well. So there's a good balance there that needs to be sought. So I think the original intent to preserve commercial space is to make sure that we're not losing our tax base, our commercial activity. And I think but the balance, right? That's why the original DPZ's recommendation really was scaled back to what was ultimately adopted. The council added West Adams, it added, I think Argonne wasn't a part of it either. Jefferson, they added the stretch to the Performing Arts Center, and those were all discussed and then thought about. And, I think were good thoughts, but they were on top of the base recommendation from the consultant. Again, we did have the second consultant look at that as well, because from staff's opinion, we just wanted an outside perspective because the council had added those on top. We said it's a good time to have an outside opinion and reevaluate. And this was one that they identified that they recommended doesn't make a whole lot of sense to require commercial for various reasons. The surrounding uses, the context, the lot size is also a challenge for commercial. We can go into more detail about that if you want, but I'll just briefly say that on a site this small, if you were to build commercial with our parking requirements for a new building, it becomes nearly impossible because we do require, for new construction, we do require them to meet our parking code. So on a site that's 60 by 100, not too easy to do even, and you don't have really space to go underground either because of the grade. So just practical considerations. I don't know if I answered your question or not, Councilman Member Sears.
You did. Thank you.
All right. Very good. Now we will go to comments from any of our residents who are Zooming in with us. So, Freddie, do we have anyone wishing to speak on this subject?
There's one thus far.
All right.
Hardy, you should be able to speak.
Looks like you're still muted, Hardy.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
My name is Hardy Manise. I wrote a letter dated 12/29/20. I own the building, which was in the picture, 121 West Adams. I moved to Kirkwood in 1955, graduated from Tillman, North Kirkwood, Kirkwood High School, have lived within the city limits of Kirkwood for 60 of my almost 73 years. I've lived on Grassy Ridge Road now for 27 years and have owned my law office building for 32 years. I'm a city attorney for another municipality in St. Louis County and have been so for 37 years. We, in a small town on the Rock Road, look, and you need to understand this, we look to towns like Kirkwood and Clayton. They constantly ask me, the council, 30s, what would Kirkwood do, Hardy? What would Kirkwood do? Kirkwood is a forerunner in municipal government and municipal planning. There is a procedural problem that I'd like to address first and then onto the substance. I don't think the affidavit even mentioned that there was going to be talk about whether or not to pass a second resolution. I don't think that that was even made public until a memo published today by Jonathan. I don't think it was even on the agenda. I don't think the public is even aware about this notion that apparently and the only way this project could be handled is to amend the framework plan first. Jonathan acts like it's almost a throwaway. We can amend it and we might want to even amend it more. It's not a throwaway. The framework plan generated after hundreds of hours of work by people, tens of thousands of dollars of consulting fees, which by the way, our little town doesn't have that kind of money. But the bottom line is that it is a very serious plan that the council itself came back and began in 2018 to try to amend. And so that gets us to a period of time from 18 to 19, 2018, 19, where the 100 West Block, where I am located, as I sit here tonight, was added to the plan. It was added to the plan because downtown Kirkwood has 4 square city blocks. They're not exactly square. You know that east and west, they're longer and rectangular. 4 blocks. It is our legacy. It is our history. It is everything. It is 4 city blocks is all it is. Now, to suggest that this framework plan can be so easily amended is really kind of offensive to a lot of Kirkwoodites. Councilman Dewey, you mentioned about traffic and commercial locations and trying to lure people to the downtown. That's absolutely what we want. It's got to be historical because it is historical. It's one of the crown jewels of St. Louis County. And so we're about to embark on a throwaway, let's just change the framework plan that everybody worked on so hard. So then are we going to move to other amendments, flexible amendments? How many condos can we get in at OK Hatchery? Maybe 6? Hey, there's 2 vacancies down on Argonne from the pandemic. Can we tear that building down and throw another 4 condos down there? What about those buildings just west of the library? Ooh, maybe 6 or 8 condos. It's the condo nibble that has now begun if you do this. And to change that location on a very desirable corner in downtown Kirkwood that some of your predecessors, and I believe some of you, decided should be substantial, mandatory commercial. And it's easy to now listen to all of this architectural and engineering stuff about the building itself. I'm talking about the district. I'm talking about the town of Kirkwood. Are we going to stop this condo nibble? Madison isn't substantially commercial. You understand that. And the condos are springing up like crazy. That's okay. But the decision was made that this block was to remain commercial. It isn't a throwaway. It's important. And these gentlemen seem like articulate, nice men. They can find other real estate, South Clay, the old houses, the apartments just south of the railroad tracks. All of that is where condos ought to be, not on a premier location in downtown Kirkwood. Now, there's no talk about joining things, commercial and residential. Apparently, it's just either residential or bust. But when it gets to be residential, it is a statement about the future. It is a statement that our plan is flexible to the developers. Buy the building, even tear it down, get city administrators to act like there's nothing wrong with changing the plan. So now you have a vacant lot, and is it a fait accompli? I get the idea from the administrative side that they are very much in favor of this. You are council people. You are the ones that control this vote. You voted as a council less than a year and a half ago, and going back probably a year or two, decided you wanted to take these sacred 4 blocks of downtown Kirkwood and you wanted to keep them historic as a legacy. We're here now and we're looking at what my little town deals with when it talks about spot zoning. This is a very sophisticated town. Do you want to be known as spot amendment? Oh, they had a plan. It was based on the history of their town. But if you really push hard enough, you can get them to spot amend their master plan for their downtown. You don't want that. 25 years ago at the corner up here, Quick Trip wanted to put a Quick Trip. It would have been the second or third or so in St. Louis. I was involved in the first. I showed up at the council meeting. The 4 men that built the first Quick Trip at the Rock Road and I-70 looked at me and they got nervous. They said, Hardy, we spent the last year working together. I said, yeah, but my office is here. I live in this town. All it was about was signage. And you know what? I turned to them at the end and they refused to comply with Kirkwood sign ordinances. I said, if you don't understand Kirkwood, maybe you ought not to do business in Kirkwood. Well, folks, these people want to build a condo and nibble away at our precious historic downtown area. Maybe they ought to look elsewhere and we ought to come up with some other plans for an intersection, by the way, that has a schoolyard, a Methodist church, an office building, and now 3 condos. What do 3 condos have to do with contributing to historic downtown Kirkwood? I would ask that question, and I would just appreciate your indulgence. But if this project is approved, if the master plan is amended, then this will cause a very regular situation where the next developer said, well, how come they got it up on the corner of Clay and Adams? Why can't we have it? We just bought the OK Hatchery. We just brought the brick building and Dr. Doan's little building next to the YMCA. Or somebody from Mission Taco throws in the towel and says, a lot of restaurants have tried in this location. The pandemic killed us. We would have done well. And the next person says, condos, where Mission Taco is now. Who knows where it's going to go? You put a plan together a few years ago. You said it was going to be commercial, and now they're nibbling. Don't let them nibble. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Hardy. Hardy, do we have anyone else wishing to speak?
There are no other hands.
All right. With that, do we have any final council questions? All right, seeing none, this public hearing is now adjourned, and this item will be on our new business agenda at our next meeting, which is January 21st. Thank you all. All right, now we will go on to public comments.
Yes, the public comments portion of the meeting is an opportunity for the city council to listen to comments from citizens. It is not a question and answer session, and the city council will not respond to comments or answer questions during this period. The mayor may refer any matter brought up to the city council, to the chief administrative officer, or city clerk if action is needed. If anyone wishes to make a public comment, if you would please state your name and address for the record. Thank you.
Very good. Freddie, do we have anyone wishing to speak?
There are no hands raised.
All right. Then now we will then move on to our consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move approval.
Have a second?
Second.
All right. Have any questions or comments? All right. Seeing none, all in favor of the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed say no. All right. Consent agenda passes. We'll move on to unfinished business, Bill 10859.
Mayor and Council, this is an ordinance granting a special use permit amendment to Ordinance 9490, which allowed the expansion of a legal non-conforming use at 800 South Guyer Road for restaurant and banquet uses with outdoor use subject to certain conditions.
Any questions or comments? All right, seeing none, roll call, please.
Mayor Griffin,
Yes.
Councilmember Dewey. You're muted, Maggie.
Yes.
Okay. Councilmember Zimmer,
Yes.
Councilmember Ward,
Yes.
Councilmember Wertz,
Yes.
Councilmember Gibbons,
Yes.
Councilmember Sears.
Yes.
Bill passes. Bill 10860.
Mayor and Council, this is an ordinance appropriating funds in the amount of $36,190 from the Equitable Sharing Fund balance to the equipment account, approving a contract amendment with Murphy Company in the amount not to exceed $36,190, which includes a contingency of $3,290 for police department video system upgrades, and authorizing and directing the mayor to enter into an amended contract.
Do you have any questions or comments? All right, seeing none, roll call, please.
Mayor Griffin,
Yes.
Councilmember Dewey,
Yes.
Councilmember Zimmer,
Yes.
Councilmember Ward,
Yes.
Councilmember Wertz,
Yes.
Councilmember Gibbons,
Yes.
Councilmember Sears.
Yes.
Bill passes. Move to new business, Bill 10861.
Mayor and Council, this is an ordinance granting a special use permit and site plan approval for a drive-through restaurant with outdoor seating at 300 South Kirkwood Road, subject to certain conditions.
Is there a motion for approval?
Move approval.
So
Is
moved.
there a second?
Second.
Second.
All right. Got a motion and a second. I'll speak very briefly, but first on this particular bill. Starbucks is a great asset to any community. It's been a great asset to Kirkwood. But this particular project, in my opinion, is not good for Kirkwood. I think we've been already alerted by staff. They have identified traffic issues, traffic congestion hazards on the lot and on the street. That creates a lot of issues. It makes it not pedestrian friendly. It does have great impact on surrounding properties because of that. That we've all seen various Starbucks, and I think the one that comes to mind for me is Brentwood. And for things to work efficiently, it requires a lot of human actions to work almost perfectly in terms of timing, delivery of coffee, customers, driving, and doing things in a timely manner and appropriately. And this is just not the location for that, especially with all the modifications that are being requested. I mean, there are modifications on this one where there's the queuing, the setback. I was looking for that right off the top of my head here, that there's just doesn't seem to be any justification for it. We've done other modifications on site plans, but there have been significant provisions made to make the site better because of that. I just don't see any of the modifications being requested being justified or warranted in any way. So with that, I will be voting against this bill. We'll go on to Councilmember Dewey.
Thank you, Mayor. I couldn't have said it better. I think that it is, because it is, especially the acreage is half, it's going to be a dangerous place. And though I really would love to see Starbucks continue in Kirkwood and actually built this Starbucks just can't be there. Thank you.
All right. Councilmember Ward.
Oh, you missed Mark.
Oh, I'm sorry, I did. I'm sorry, you're next. I apologize. Councilmember Zimmer.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. In addition to your comments, yeah, they did request a lot of modifications. I was hoping to maybe propose a few amendments to this to make it work. I think we all would really like this to work. Starbucks has been a part of Kirkwood, especially in that area of downtown, for many years now. And I think, you know, there's potential if they reworked that, they reworked their plan. But I think right now, just from my personal experience, seeing an accident from a Starbucks on the same street, about 7 or 8 miles south on Lindbergh, witnessing an accident firsthand from a queue line that went out onto Lindbergh, you know, before this even came to the city, was something that I certainly had to consider. So hopefully something else will come of it, but there are a lot of concerns with this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Councilmember Ward.
Well, Mayor, I agree with the comments that you made. I think they were asking for a lot of amendments from the city, and typically when we do that, there's some expectation for some offsets, and we weren't seeing any offsets provided by this applicant. That didn't help what was already a bad situation. So, yeah, I'm not going to be in support of this.
Councilmember Wertz.
I'm just kind of echoing what everyone else said. The modifications to me make it more unsafe for bicyclists, pedestrians in that area, especially, which is a concern now that we have the Performing Arts Center just down the street. And then as Wallace just said, when you ask for these many modifications, I want to see something that would benefit the city in return, and I'm just not seeing it here. So those are my thoughts. Thanks.
Councilmember Gibbons.
I just, I feel like everyone else does. I do want Starbucks to know that we appreciate their business and want them to stay in Kirkwood, and would love to find a great location for them for a drive-through. But this doesn't seem like the right thing.
Councilmember Sears.
Right. I would say, please stay in Kirkwood and please find a location where there can be a drive-through. I think it's be a big amenity for our town if you can do that. But there were two, in my mind, I don't know what enhancement could even go so far as to overcome the internal traffic patterns that were shown to us. There's more than one place where the traffic would have to merge together to get into the queue line. There's parking spaces that are blocked off for the whole time that there's somebody in the queue, and that's problematic on both sides of the queue. So I can't even imagine a positive amenity that they could come up with to overcome that somewhat dangerous, potentially dangerous problem.
All right, very good. Any other council comments or questions before we take the vote? All right. Seeing none, all in favor of Bill 10861, please say aye. All opposed, say no.
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 All right. Looks like we have a unanimous vote of no. So Bill 10861 does not pass. We go to Bill 10862.
Mayor and Council, this is an ordinance amending the Kirkwood Code of Ordinances, Chapter 14, Section 14-403, no right turn on red, to add the intersection of North Taylor Avenue and Quan Avenue and the intersection of Quan Avenue and Woodlawn.
Is there a motion for approval?
So
Move
moved.
approval.
We've got a motion and a second. We have any questions or comments?
I do.
Okay, let's see. Councilmember Gibbons.
I'm very excited about this happening, especially close to Tillman Elementary. So I Googled last night, what the safest kind of sign was. And the Federal Highway Administration recommends, especially where there are substantial pedestrian volume and children crossing, that the sign have a red ball in the center and be 30 by 36 inches. So I would like to request that that's part of the ordinance.
That's what, Russ, could we, go ahead.
I know the sign that we ordered had the red ball. I don't know its exact size. Bill Bensing may.
Yeah.
Do you know, Bill?
I do not know the exact size, but we have to take a look at that because it depends on its location, if it's up on the mast arm or if it's a standalone sign on the side of the street. It makes a big difference.
I can understand that.
But we will verify it and put up the appropriate MUTC compliant sign.
And we did order, we were looking at the red ball, correct?
Yes,
Bill?
we do have a standard one that's with the red ball on order.
That's what I thought.
Anything else from anyone?
I have a quick
Councilmember
comment.
Ward.
Yeah. So this is, steps from my house. And so my family walk this nearly every day. And this intersection, up until the improvements, was the scariest part for us because, we have a 2.5-year-old, 3-year-old, and a dog going everywhere. And so you'd have to, make sure that you had them as close as possible, just trying to get onto Quan as you walked. And now with the improvements, it's just amazing. And so, this is just kind of an added little boost, but I just really commend everyone who is a part of this project getting off because I already feel the difference. And so I know my neighbors and the kids that go to Tillman do too. So thank you.
Very good. All right, well, with that, all in favor of Bill 10862, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. All right. Bill passes first reading. All right, we have no consent agenda items. City Council report. Councilmember Zimmer.
Yes, I just wanted to comment about the violence that occurred in our country yesterday. We're a nonpartisan body, and I just want to say the violence that happened yesterday was absolutely unacceptable. Violence is never the answer. And, we as a council obviously stand against that and wanted to make that clear to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other council comments? All right, I don't see any. Chief Administrative Officer report.
I don't have anything at this time, Mayor.
City Attorney report.
We're off to a good year. I have nothing to report.
City Clerk report.
I second what John said. We do not have any public hearings scheduled at this point, so I have nothing to report.
All right, and no P&Z meeting last night, so you have no P&Z
Nope.
meeting report to make. So we're the only ones working in this.
Yeah, what's up with that?
All right. Well, with that, our next meeting is 2 weeks from tonight, January 21st, 7 p.m. via Zoom. This meeting is adjourned. Good night, all.
Right.
Good night.
I know.
Thank you.
We need